Hello students, Logan Phillips here. This video we're going to be talking about the Microsoft Excel Simnet Environments Guided Project 2-3. Now this is a step-by-step walkthrough on common mistakes, common issues, and how to do the assignment appropriately. So hopefully if you follow along, do the steps as I do them, you should receive 100% at the end of the grade, or end of the video when you turn in your assignment to your professors, whoever that may be. So let's go ahead and go into Simnet, open up our assignment, take a peek, and see what we're going to be working with today. So we always start off with the top hand, left-hand side. We have the download link with our start file. Please remember that the start file is a digitally signed link to yourself. So if you try to use someone else's, it will notify the professor and you'll get busted for cheating. Now below that, once we download here, we have some instruction files going down below. I always strongly encourage you to go to the right hand side and hit the download link and our print link and print this off and keep it in front of you. That way when you're following along with this video or you're working on it, you can check off where you're at. It's usually easier to do if you're only working on a single monitor. And we have some skills that we're going to be covering in this project. We're going to be naming some cell ranges, we're going to create and copy some formulas, we're going to set some mathematical order of operations, use absolute cell references, insert current date as a function, use the payment, audit formulas, and a sum if and sum product. So just looking at those real quick, and I haven't looked at this assignment in a very long time, I can say that we're probably going to be doing something financial, something of an accountant document, and we're doing Sierra Pacific-02. So I'm not real sure what that is offhand, but I see student loan there. So we're probably doing an amortization schedule and some loan documentation. So this is real world application. You can break down your home loans, you can break down your student loans, your car loans, those type of things. This is how you set up a spreadsheet for that. So I'm going to be working in a split screen. I will not be showing you this information. That will be on a separate screen for me, so you won't be seeing it. I will only show you your start file. So let's go ahead and upload. Top left-hand side, click our start file. We're going to download and open it up. Now the very first step that I am personally going to do is with this, I'm going to enable editing on the yellow bar, and then I'm going to do a file, backstage view. I'm going to save as, and I'm going to put it into my desktop. And I'm going to leave the naming the same, however it was named coming to me. That does a couple things. One, a lot of things get saved to our downloads folder and they get lost pretty quickly. And two, it allows me to upload it very quickly when it comes down to the end of it to the instructional systems so that I can get it graded and not upload the incorrect one. Now the next step I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zoom in for this video, and I'm going to zoom in to about 190, 200% or so. Let's see how that looks. Now the reason I'm doing this is for the instructional video. You do not need to zoom in. I'm doing this simply so it's easy to see when I'm writing formulas and those type of things. With all that set up, let's go ahead and look at our instructions, see what we're actually working at, where we're doing. Let's see, did I close my instruction file? Nope, here it goes. Alright, so as we're doing this video, I will say that I am on step 1A, step 7B, or I will tell you that we just completed step 6, 1 through F. So that's there to help you follow along. You can check mark on the file itself, the instruction files itself, if you like. I strongly suggest printing it off and just checking as you go along. I will say that I am human. I get lost in my own documentations. It can happen. So I may have to backtrack. If I make an error, I will leave the error in the video and I will show you how to fix the error because it's more than likely a common error. And again, I'm human and I make those. And so I think it's easier and better for you to learn what the mistakes are so you can fix them than to just act like they don't ever happen. Alright, so we've done step 1 at this point in time. Excuse me. And so we're going to move on to step 2. And we are on step 2. We're going to select the student loan sheet and we're going to select cells B5 through C8. Give me 1 second. I'm going to refresh my instruction menus here. Done step 1, cell C5 through C8, B5 through C8. So that's going to be this section right here. It's column B, row 5, and here I'm using my shift key and my down arrow going down to row 8, and I'm hitting my right arrow to go to column C. So B5 through C8, and then I'm going to come over here up to the top, and on my ribbon I'm going to go to my formulas tab, into my define names grouping, and I'm going to choose define or create from selection. Now there's a common error that you can make here, and what we're wanting to do is be able to reference quickly the loan amount, the loan term, the rate, or the payment. We want to be able to just type in those words instead of typing C5, B8, C9, C6. It makes it easier for you as a person to deal with this. Now, you can do this by hitting Define Name one at a time, or you can highlight all of them and use Create from Selection. If you hit Define Name and have this selected, it's going to create one term for this whole box instead of a loan amount term, a loan term, a rate term, and a payment term. So we're going to come over here. We have a new menu that's popped up, and we're going to make sure the left column selected because that's the names we're wanting. Now, the defined names will not allow you to put blank spaces in. So like here it says loan space amount. When I define this, it will now be loan underscore amount instead of a space. So let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, that is step 2, 3, or step 2A, step 2B, step 2C, step 2D, and step 2, we're now in 2E. So we're going to come to E5. We're going to highlight E5 through F8, I believe, F7. And we're going to go to the same steps again. We're going to come up here on the Formulas tab, Define Names, Create from Selection. We're going to make sure the left column is selected because that's the names we're looking for. And the right column is the actual information we're going to reference. And we're going to hit OK. Now we've done a bunch of range names now, so let's go ahead and make sure that they're actually there. To do that, we're going to go to our Formulas tab, Define Name Grouping, Name Manager. Now you should see a variety of these: a loan amount, loan term, payment rate, total cost, total interest, and total principal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. The value should be typed into the next column, 10,000, 5, 4.5, but some of them are going to be blank because we actually haven't defined those. So like the payment term has a blank cell in cell C7. That's why you're going to see a blank in the column for the payment term on the cell. Now we're going to hit Close. And we have done step 2F and step 2G. And let's open that back up, and we should see that these refer to absolute references. Okay, we got that taken care of. Cancel that. Okay. All right, so we have total interest, principal, cost, total loan amount, loan term, rate, payment. Next, we're going to go to cell C8, and we're going to create the PMT function, or the payment function. So with C8 selected, we're going to come up here to our functions bar, or you can come to your Formulas tab. In fact, let's go Formulas tab. Formulas tab on the ribbon. We're going to go to Function Library Grouping. We're going to use our financial down arrow, and we're going to scroll down until you see PMT. Now make sure you don't choose PPMT. We are looking for PMT, Papa Mountain Time, whatever you want to call it. Now this is going to give you a dialog box launcher that allows you to walk through this formula. So we get exactly the information we want. So we're going to be putting in our rate, our INPER, our PV. We're going to leave blank the FV and the type. So the rate is calculated is the interest rate for the period. So if you have a 4.5 interest rate a year, which is what we have here, you need to take that and divide it by 12, because 4.5 a year divided by 12 months gives you your per month interest rate. The INPER is the total number of payments for the loan. So we have a loan term of 5 years, but payments every month, which means 5 times 12, give us our total amount of loans. And the PV is a present value, is the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. So let's go ahead and set up our rate first. We are on step 3B. We've done 3B, we've done 3C. We're going to type in next under rate, we're going to select cell C7. I'm sorry, not cell C7. Yes, cell C7, the rate box. And then we're going to come up and we're going to hit a divide symbol, and we're going to hit 12. Notice that this spelled out rate divided by 12, not C7 divided by 12. Next, we are going to go to step 3E. We're going to click on the in per box, and we're going to click on cell C6. So C6, that is a blank cell, but it's also called the loan term, which is an absolute reference. And we're going to multiply this using an asterisk and a 12. Now, I've made a mistake here. As soon as I hit that 12, I hit enter to go to the next box down in my dialog box launcher. And I have entered in too few arguments with my dialog box, so it's giving me an error. And what that means is, if I hit OK, I'm going to show you how to backtrack this. I can come up here to my functions, insert function menu button, open it back up, and I can see I forgot to put in present value. So typically when I'm working in Excel, I can hit enter and go to the next cell down. If you had a dialog box launcher open, you hit enter, it's going to make the whole dialog box close instead of going to the next one down. So make sure you use your mouse. We are now on to our present value, and we're going to type a minus sign because our present value is going to degrade over time. And then we're going to click on cell C5. C5. So we have a present value of $10,000 that is going to go down with each payment. We are now on to step 3I. We're going to leave the FV and type boxes deleted. FV and type are typically used if you have a depreciation schedule, maybe a piece of farm equipment that you're going to sell at the end of the time, and it might still be worth a few grand or tens of thousands, whatever that is. So these are really for depreciation schedules. We're not going to leave or use them right now for this amortization schedule. So we're going to hit OK, and that gives us through step 3J. And now in step 3K, we're going to verify the format in cell C8. So let's go to cell C8 is in the accounting format. And so I can see right off the bat that it is not. So I'm going to go to my home tab. I'm going to go to my numbers grouping, and I'm going to change from currency to accounting. All right, with that in place, we are now done with step 3. We're moving on to step 4. We're going to create a total interest formula. So here in column F, row 5, in total interest, we're going to start modifying some stuff. We're going to hit an equal sign, and this equals cell C8. C8, our payment, times cell C6, which is our loan term, and multiplied by 12 because there's 12 loans in every year, and there's 5 years. And then we're going to subtract cell C5, the loan amount. So we should come up with a number of 1,185.81 if I have done that correctly. Let's see, 1,185.81. So that formula again, we can see in our formula bar, is a payment times loan term times 12 minus the loan amount. So this gives us our total interest separated from everything else. Our total principal, we're going to hit our equal sign, and this takes us through step 4, A, B, C, D, and E. Give me 1 second, I got lost in my instructions real quick. Type equal cell C8. Type 12 multiply payments, values type perform counts and absolute references. Type cell C5, loan amount. Okay, sorry. We have finished step 4, and I'm on step 5, which is why I kept getting mistaken. I was like, man, we've already done this. All right, step 5, we're going to select on cell F6. And from F6, where this is the total principal, so how much of every loan is our total principal we're going to pay. We're going to type the equal sign, go to cell C8. So out of our payment each month, how much money is going to principal? How much money is going to our interest? So let's cell C8. We're going to multiply this by cell C6, the loan term. And we're going to multiply that by 12. And we're going to subtract cell F5. So F5 here, our total interest. And hit enter. So our total principal is $10,000 right now. Our total cost, and let me look at that formula one more time. That is a payment times loan term times 12 minus total interest. So if we go payment, cell C8 times loan term, which is 5, or cell C6 times 12 times total interest is F5. And you can see here my naming structures all should match up into my name manager up here. So that's why these formulas work in this function. With that, we are done steps 5A through F. We are now on step 5H. We're going to click on cell F7. And from S7, we're going to do the total cost of the loan. So this is going to be equal symbol, and it's going to be cell F5, the total principal, plus cell F5, the total interest, or $11,185.81. So if I take 5 years at 4.5% interest rate and payments of $186.43 a month, in 5 years, when the payment loan is paid off, I will have paid $1,185 of principal and 81 cents. I will have, or interest. I will pay $10,000 in principal, or I will pay completely out of pocket $11,185.81. We are now done with step 5. We're moving on to step 6. We're going to set the order of mathematical operations to build a amortization schedule. So this is scrolling down from the bottom. We have this numbers, payments 1, 2. So you may want to know what payment you have. In payment 17, how much interest rate am I paying versus how much principal? Or how much principal have I paid off by the time I'm down to payment 65, something of that nature. So that's what's called an amortization schedule. We're going to click on cell B13. That is the beginning balance of payment 1. And we're going to hit equal sign, and we're going to go cell B13, or cell C5. So C5. So my beginning balance of my loan amount is $10,000. And we're going to hit enter. So we got a beginning balance is my loan amount. Next, we're going to go to cell C13, and we're on step 6D. And we're going to do the interest rates for each payment is calculated by multiplying the balance in the column B by the rate divided by 12. So let's do an equal sign. We're going to do cell B13. So B13, our beginning balance. Let's try that again. Equal sign, our beginning balance B13 times, so an asterisk, open up the parentheses, and we're going to do C7 divided by 12. Close our parentheses. Make sure if you open a parentheses, you always close the parentheses. Hit enter, and we should have the result of $37.5 in interest. Now I'm going to modify these two numbers. I'm going to come up to my home tab. I'm going to change them from a number to an accounting. So $10,000 beginning balance, $37.50 in interest. That's figuring out how much principal we're paying in that first payment. So we have done steps 6A through F and G and H. So we're now on to 6I. We're going to select cell D13, and this is going to do the portion of the payment that is applied to the principal. So each month out of $186, this first month $37.50 went to interest. The rest of it goes to the principal, which is going to shrink our loan down each month. So for this cell, we're going to hit our equal symbol. We're going to click on cell C8, the payment, and we're going to take our payment. We're going to subtract out of it from our cell C13. And from that, we're going to hit enter. So $148.93 is the amount of principal paid on this month. So $148.93 plus $37.50 gives us our total payment of the month of $186.43. Next, in cell E13, we're going to do our total payment. So let's go ahead and finish up steps 6H through M. We're on to step 6N on the F13. We're going to take the ending balance is the beginning balance minus the principal payment. So let's take equal sign equals our beginning balance minus the principal payment. So that's B13 minus D13. and hit enter. So our new balance remaining of $9,851.07 comes into our next month. And so our ending balance on cells F13 is going to be B13. I'm sorry. I backed this up a little. Made a small error here. We're going to fix it. So let's go to E13 and hit delete. Our total payment is going to be equal to our interest plus our principal. C13 plus D13. So each month we make $186.43. Our ending balance is going to be our beginning balance minus our principal payment only. So at the end of the month, after we paid $186.43, we have left over $9,851.07. We've now finished up with step 6. We're moving on to step 7. We're going to fill data and copy formulas. So let's select the cells A13 and A14. A13 and A14. And we're going to drag it down to A72. So bottom right hand corner we have a little fill box handle. We're going to drive it down to A72 and release. Now this should increase these payments up by 1 each time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 60 payments. And I'm going to take a wild guess and say 12 times 5, or 12 payments a year for 5 years, is going to equal out to 60 payments. All right, so we've done step 7A and 7B. We're going to click on cell B14 next. And B14. And the beginning balance is, for the second payment, is the ending balance of the first payment. So we're going to hit the equal sign and click on cell F13. So F13 and hit enter. So at the beginning of the month 2, we have $9,851.07 left in our account so that we owe. And then we're going to do the same thing for interest, principal, total payment, and we're going to have a new ending balance. Next, we're going to select, double-click the fill pointer for cell B14. So let's go B14. And we're going to automatically fill this down. Now I can see because we weren't using an absolute reference, this equals B13. The next one should be F14, F15, F16, F17. It keeps counting down through each of the ones. Next on cells C13 through F13, so let's highlight C13 through F13. And we're going to double click the fill pointer on cell F13. So bottom right hand corner of the F13, double click, and we now have an amortization schedule. So this is really important because we can see in the first month we paid $37.50 in interest. But on the last month, we're only paying 70 cents in interest, and almost the entire payment is going to the principal payment. And so you can see in your schedule, one month you'll be 50% done, 100% done, 70% done, how much total principal you're going to pay, and how much total interest you will pay. All right, so we've done now step 7F, step 7G, and we're going to scroll down to the values in row 72. So we should end on 0, 186.43, 185.73, 70 cents, and 185.73. All right, let's go hit our control button and home, taking us back up to the beginning of the screen. And we have now completed step 7, and we're going to go on to step 8. So on step 8, we're going to build a multiplications formula. So let's go to the fees and credit. So on the bottom side, we have a tab that takes us into the fees and credit sheet. And so we're going to build a multiplication table here. We're going to select cell F7. That's the general biology, credit hours, number of sections, fees per credit hour, total fees. We're going to hit equal sign. Say C7, so C7 times D7 times E7. So C7 times D7 times E7. So $4,500 in fees. That's step 8A and B. And then we're going to go to step 8C. We're going to come over to cell F7. We're going to double click our fill handle in the bottom right hand corner and drawing down this formula to all the other column, the rest of the column. We're going to verify that cells F7 through F18 are the currency format. So let's go to Home tab, number grouping, and make sure that that is in currency. And set a single bottom border for cell F18. So right now you have everything selected. We need to come down to F18, come up to the font grouping on the Home tab, and do a single bottom border. And so we now have dash marks, dash marks, dash marks, one full bottom border. All right, we're now into step 9. We're going to use a sum if to calculate fees by department. So let's select cell C29. So C29, is it 29 or 26? C26, I apologize. On C26, for the biology department, we want to figure out the total fees. So we're going to ask of this group, if it says biology, how much is our total fees? So add up every one place that says biology. And then we're going to add up how many places it says biology, the total number of credits. And we're going to do this for each of these individual ones. So in cell C26, we're going to click on the Math and Trigonometry buttons. So we're going to go to Formula tab, Function Library, Math and Trigonometry. And we're going to find the sum if. So down here, make sure we're not doing sum if s, we're doing sum if. We brought up a functions argument dialog box, and so we're going to find our range and our criteria. So in the range, we're looking here in the department. Our criteria is going to be biology, and then we're going to sum them up if we can. So our range is B7 through B18, so B column, B7 through B18. Our criteria, we need to make this an absolute reference, so let's come back up here and hit F4 to get those locked into place. And our criteria, we're going to do criteria box and select cell B26. So that's B26, the bio. And the sum range box, we're going to select cells F7 through F18. So F7 through F18. So if it says biology, in the B column, we're going to sum all the numbers in the F column to give us a number. So we're going to hit OK. So our total fees for biology department, they brought in 13,350 fees. At this point, we are complete with 9A through F and G. Okay, we're on to step 10. We're going to copy the sum if formula. We're going to click on cell C26. So C26, and we're going to drag its fill pointer to copy the formula. So bottom right hand corner, we're going to grab a hold of that fill pointer, drag it down to the other pieces. So we can see here we got at least one error. FYI has a 0 answer. So I can see here FYI brought in 4 credit hours of $4,000. So I got an issue here that I need to find out. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I found this error and how to fix it. So I'm going to back this up and get rid of these formulas. I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to change it to without format filling, so we keep our dotted line, our shapes. But if you can see here on cell C26, my formula is cells B7 through B18 and F7 through F18. But on this one, my formula drops down 1 on the right hand side, and there we drop down 1 again on the right hand side. So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to change my formula here with an F4, and I'm going to change the locking it into place and hit enter. Next, I'm going to drag this formula down again. I'm going to change it to without formatting. And now we have an actual number here. The physiology 11,700, 7,200, 3,795, and 13,350. So that one little absolute reference actually made a world of difference when I copied my formulas down and messed up everything. If I would turn this into a boss, the physics department would have been like, why are you showing that we have 0 money? Like we didn't earn anything, we didn't enroll any students. So we've done the number 10 at this point, 10A and 10B. We're going to make sure that these are in a currency. So right now we're in general. We're going to change these to a currency. And we're going to move on to step 11. We're going to do a sum product and trace an error. So we're going to select cells D26. And we're going to click on the Formulas tab. we're going to go into a math and trigonometry, and we're going to do a sum product. So let's go down to the S's, and we're going to do a sum product. Open up that sum product, functions, arguments dialog box. With sum product, functions, argument dialog box. So I was making sure my radio wasn't echoing. On array 1, array 2, and array 3, we're going to select cells C7 through C9 for array 1. So C7 through C9 in array 1. In array 2, we're going to do D7 through D9. So D7 through D9. And array 3. Alright, so and array 3, we're not going to do anything. We're going to hit OK. So we have 98 total credit hours for the biology department. That takes us step 11, A through E. We are now moving on to step 11F. We're going to click on cell D26. So D26. And we're going to trace the error button. So you can see here a little error has popped up on the left-hand side. This formula cell reference to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. So when we built this formula, we only selected the top 3. And really, I need to reference everything. So we're going to allow Excel to fix this formula. So let's go ahead and click on it, and we're going to ignore error. So they want us to ignore this error. So 98. Alright, so we have got the trace error fixed, ignored, and we're moving on to step 12. Alright, step 12, we're going to copy and edit the sum product. We're going to select cell D26, and we are going to drag its wheel pointer and copy the formulas D27 to D29. And we're not going to preserve its borders. And so let's go ahead and do the drop down on the formatting handle and fill without formatting. So we kept in our dotted lines and our dash. So we have 98 hours of biology, 101 hours of foreign language, 86 hours of IMS, and 69 hours of physiology or physics. All right, we've done step 12 at this point in time. We might have errors, so we're going to go ahead and ignore these errors as well. So we have good errors, good data, good information here. We're on to step 13. So in step 13, we're going to insert the current date as a function. So we're going to select cell F20. So cell F and 20. We're going to equal symbol and TO and tab. So by doing that, it brings up a functions menu. Equal symbol, TO. You can see it autofills, and I want that top one. If I want one of the bottom ones, I can hit my down arrows or up arrows. But I want the today function, so I'm going to hit onto it, and then tab, and enter. So 1/22/2020 is today's date for when I made this video. We're going to hit Control H, going back to our home, our cell A1, and we have finished step 13. Next, in step 14, we're going to paste some of these range names. So we're going to click on a new sheet button in the we're going to click on a new sheet button in the sheet tab area. So if we come down to the bottom, we have student loan tab, we have fees and credits tab, and we have a plus symbol. That's going to bring us a new tab. If we open up the plus symbol, we have sheet 1. We're going to name this range names. We're going to press F3. Or possibly function F3. Let's see, F of N, F3. Hit enter first after you do the range names, then hit F3. How about that? That brings up all my range names. So that was a common error. I typed in the new range name or the range names in the tab, but I didn't do it right. I didn't hit enter and finish it out, so I couldn't hit F3. So with the once that's done, hit F3, bring up our paste names dialog box launcher. and we're going to hit the paste link button, paste list button, and we're going to autofit columns A, B. So we pasted list. We're going to select columns A and B. We're going to go to our Home tab, Cells Grouping, Format, Autofit Column Width. So that takes us through step 14. Now I'm going to back up a little bit because I see an error message here that's going to cost me points. So I have range names. What this is supposed to be is range names with an uppercase, both for the R and the N. If you don't do the exact name, it will count you off for all of step 14. Next, we're going to do step 15, 16, and 17. So we're going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to do a file, backstage, save. We got this saved, and we're going to open back up our instructions. We're going to come up here to the very top. We're going to choose to upload our file. Let's find it on my desktop is where I put it. So I think this one was named what? Let's look at it real quick and see what my name was. So this is Logan Period Phillips Sierra Pacific -021 for me. So make sure you upload the correct one. Logan Phillips Sierra Pacific -021. Hit open. We're going to submit the file. And I live in the country, things take a minute. And it looks like I got a 93 out of 100%. So we got an A, but let's figure out exactly where we made our mistake and fix that. So it looks on step 12, I did a copy and edit sum product. So we select the range in array 2 box and selected cells D10 through D12. So it looks like when I copied it over, I had C8 to C10, I needed D10 through D12. I had C9 through C11, I needed C12 through that. So let's go ahead and open up our assignment again. Now luckily I did not change anything. And let's go ahead and fix these issues that I see and go from there. So in step 12D, we're supposed to select the range in the array 2 box and select cells D10 through D12. So that's going to be over here. This should read 98, 69, 96, 88. So I got the first one right, but all the other ones are incorrect. In cell D27, I have C8 through C10, D8 through D10. And let's fix that. I clicked on something wrong. On this one, I had C7 through C9, C8 through C10, so let's just go back through and manually fix these real quick. So for the FOR for languages, this should read C here, foreign languages, C8. Well, let's just open up the board here. All right. Array 1 should be C8. C10 through C12. If I can get selected correctly, C10 through C12. Array 2 should be D9 or D10 through D12. And array 3 we leave blank. Okay. And so we're going to modify this one again. We're going to open up the functions box. We're going to get rid of these array numbers. And so array 1, this is IMS, so we're going to go C12, C13 through C15. And array 2 is going to be D13 through D15. And OK. And last, we're going to modify this one, array 1. So array 1, we're going to be physiology, that is C16 through 18, and array 2, same D16 through 18. Hit OK. So our final numbers should be 98, 69, 96, 88. We got it. We're going to make sure we're coming through here and ignore the errors. We're going to save our document. We're going to come back over here and we're going to back up a little bit and we're going to try this again. So we're going to upload the file. We're going to choose our desktop. We're going to find that file that we modified. Open it up. Submit it. And we got 100%. So this teaches you a couple things. You can always go through and manually edit it to how it needs to be fixed, and you don't have to start from scratch. If you make an error, take your work you've already done, fix the error, and then re-upload. All right, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'm Logan Phillips. This was Microsoft Excel Simnet Environment, the 2019 Guided Project 2-3. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. You can be called 918-595-7485. Send me an email, logan.phillips1@tulsacc.edu. Come to my office 8132, but best is always to email. Have a very fruitful day, guys.